Hey man,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm trying to stay warm.
Yeah, it's kind of chilly.
And I don't want to turn the heater up and because tomorrow it's supposed to be like in the 80s or something crazy. So I'm trying to just tough it out. I
Yeah,
have socks on my feet and sweatpants on. So it's the beauty about this. I can be dressed from here up. I do have a hoodie in case my ears get cold. But yeah, I'll be in shorts tomorrow. So who knows?
yeah, it's kind of weird weather these days, but
It
that's
is.
what it is. And I know all over the country we've got customers that are usually their busy season starts early and it's been starting late. We've got those that started late when it normally starts early,
Yeah,
and vice
I
versa.
talked to who was it? Oh, that the gentleman that was out that serviced my stove last Friday was doing some work. Sorry, I'm going to do two things while I do this. Was doing some work on there, and I asked him. I said, "So, you guys staying busy?" He goes, "Yeah, we're staying pretty busy. It's not quite as busy as normal, but it seems like it's busy enough. I mean, I'm certainly steady." I said, "Well, wait till next week. It's supposed to be freezing." And it's funny because I had a meeting today with our account owners, and I'm like, "Anybody calling?" And they're like, "No, nobody's calling. Everybody's busy." So that's the way it is. That's the way it
Terry
works.
says it's 90 degrees in San
Oh,
Diego.
man, I saw that. It's like if you're out west, it's really hot. So Terry, normally, what is it normally out there this time of year? I'm just curious.
It's pretty steady from what I remember about San Diego. I mean, the fluctuations are not as drastic as other parts of the country from season to season. It's a pretty steady, cooler temperature.
Yeah, but it's not 90.
No, not
I think
normally.
it's more like in the 70s, if I remember
Exactly.
right.
60s and
Yeah,
70s. Yeah. Oh, 70, 80 now. Okay.
70, 80. Okay. Well, normally about this time. Okay. Well, that's not too bad. It's normally supposed to be like 72 here, and the high yesterday was 52. So,
We barely hit 50 here. Yeah.
oh my gosh, which is really weird because I'm north of you, and if you look at the temperature, we've been a little bit warmer than people in the south.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. That was interesting. Well, you ready to kick this thing off?
Yes, sir. Let's talk.
Linda's on. Linda Royhouse says, "Good afternoon."
Hey, Linda.
Good afternoon to you too, Linda. Glad you're here. Thank you guys very much for being here. Um, One of the things I will tell you is if you want to give us a thumbs up or a heart, that would be great. Facebook likes that stuff, so that's fantastic. Thank you, Terry, for doing that. Man, I just love when I ask people to do things and they do it. Don't y'all? It's just fantastic.
You're
So,
talking about me, aren't you? Because I never do what you ask me to do.
at least not right after I ask you. That is true. Maybe the third or fourth time. How's that?
Sure.
Is
Yeah.
that fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fair.
All right. So we're going to get on and talk about how to deal with negative comments on social media. So you and I beforehand we're talking about this. It's like, oh, we've covered this, we've covered this. And it's like, well, not really. We haven't really covered on social media, and there are a few little differences. So I just want to go through that really, really quick before we start here because
Sure.
if you get a complaint in an email, normally if somebody emails you, they don't expect you to get right back to you. But if somebody calls you, they expect you to answer the phone call because it's an immediate thing, right? Well, on a review, it's kind of like an email. They leave you a review, but they don't really expect for you to answer a review if you have a negative comments on a review, like really, really quickly, because not everybody's on the reviews at the same time. But if you look at a social, people are on Facebook. If you've got a pretty good social platform, then people are on your social media. So things happen much quicker on social. So social is kind of between a review and a phone call,
Hmm.
you know? So if you kind of look at it that way. So, but just like in all of them, all of those formats that I just said, you have to address the negative comments.
Yeah, it's not acceptable. I mean, you just don't want to be in a situation where there are negative comments that exist on your social media, on your business page, or anywhere else on social media in your accounts where negative comments are happening, but you're not responding.
Yeah.
And and it doesn't take a whole lot to respond. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, just the ways that responses can happen, and some of it is going to feel familiar. It's going to sound a little bit like how you respond to negative reviews,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some subtle differences, and we'll talk about that a little as we go through it.
Yeah, and I think this is something else that people don't think about. If you're getting the same complaint, whether it's on social, phone, email, review, whatever it is, if if people there's two different things here. If you're legitimately getting the same complaint, then that's something that really is good for you as a business because it can point you in the direction of some things that might need to get fixed. And that's a good thing. Okay. But there is something called piling on online on social media. So tell us a little bit about what piling on is, because that to me is a little bit different from getting the same negative complaint.
Well, yes and no. I mean, so what we see with piling on is it's like a contagion, if you will. Social media has this tendency when someone says something, people either jump in and start agreeing, or they jump in and start bashing what you just said. Right? It's one extreme or the other sometimes. And when it comes to negative comments about a business, you'll find that some people that may not be inclined to criticize online, when they see someone else do it, they feel permission to,
Mm.
you know, say what they were going to say, right? I'm glad somebody said it, because I had this experience very similar to yours. And so suddenly more and more people start coming out of the woodwork. They've been holding this stuff for a while. And now they're starting to go, yeah, it must be a pattern with the business because, we're seeing that too. And we had that same experience. And I heard somebody down the street did too. And so now you get this dog pile where everybody is piling on and adding the same sentiment, and it can be a runaway freight train, and it can get away from you, and that's not something that of course is not good for business. So dealing with that is important. And when you are on top of comments and you're replying quickly, it can shut down that sort of negative snowball, and steer people back toward more reasonable kinds of responses. But social media loves a vacuum, and when a business owner isn't going to stand up and help to provide perspective, the negative customers sometimes see that vacuum and just slip right into it and fill that void with a whole lot of criticism.
Yeah, which leads me to this one, which I think is really, really important. Don't let the comment get stale while you think about it. I can't tell you, you know, I have never seen it in home service businesses, but I have certainly seen it in restaurants where by the time the owner gets around to actually making the comment about it and talking about what's going on, it's already out of hand. It's a mile down the road. And, while you've kind of sat around thinking about how you want to answer, what are you going to do, how are you going to do it, all those things, it's kind of done what you just said. It's taken off, and there's now a freight train moving, and it has a life of its own. And, it's that old deal what is it when you get moving? I just had the word and then I
Momentum.
lost it.
Momentum.
Momentum, yeah. When you have negative momentum that's heading down the road online, sometimes that's really, really hard to stop. So, yeah, it's really crazy. Yes, and that brings me to the next thing, Terry. Thank you so much for bringing that out. Don't let the comment go stale, but at the same time, don't respond so fast where you haven't thought enough about the proper response. there is a fine line.
Yep.
And that brings me to our next subject. Leave your emotions at the door. Normally, if that fine line is not walked, it's because somebody is emotionally invested. They're either angry, hurt, frustrated, something is there, and they kind of go off in that land of not being able to control their emotions, or they say something that's a little bit kind of it's kind of stick it to them. I want to make sure that they feel the same pain that they just inflicted in me just a little bit. So that's really important, to leave your emotions at the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's you also don't want to come across as saccharine sweet too, right? Like you're not taking serious what someone is saying, and that's a fine line too. And I'm starting to think about how to form a response that acknowledges the seriousness of what someone is saying, while at the same time taking it offline and encouraging someone to have that conversation away from public scrutiny. How do you do that, right? I mean, and when I'm starting to think about it, I look at a lot of reviews that, or not just reviews, but like comments online where an owner or an employee is weighing in, and I see their response, and I'm always asking myself the question: is that a fair response, or is that a good response given the situation that's currently in? Is it an overreaction? Is it an underreaction? Is it just right? Kind of playing Goldilocks with the comment to see how could it be improved. It's sort of this game, of trying to find that PR tone that doesn't put people off, doesn't sound fake and plastic, but at the same time doesn't give into somebody just letting loose with their emotions either. And I mean, I've seen a lot of responses lately that sometimes it makes sense to allow a little bit of emotion to be in there, to indicate I feel like this is unfair, but you're not you never turn into a what's the term? I mean, it's not a tit for tat kind of a war. It's or an eye for an eye kind of a thing. You're holding back still, but you're also expressing that this concern.
Being assertive.
Yeah, right. Assertive. That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, and I think that's really fair. I think there's a difference of when you leave your emotions at the door, you're just kind of checking them. It's kind of, you're checking your emotions to make sure that your emotions isn't driving the conversation. But I think it's very fair and very fair-minded to be able to state your case. But you have to state your case in a way that is measured, if you will, that this is what happened. I understand you're upset, and I think acknowledging is really important. So there's two things that I would say here. Number one is use the person's name. Mr. Smith, Mr. Hill, Mr. Harkins, whatever, because that is something of respect. Start there. And then the second thing is make sure that you are listening to them. And in so doing, acknowledge that you have read their review, you understand, or maybe you don't understand. I mean, it's fine if you don't understand. I'm really confused by what you've written, because this was our experience there. And so you're able to put your experience on there. So I think it's all relative. I think the biggest thing is to be measured, and to kind of just have that, just I guess the tone of it, if you will. Is that a fair assessment of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult conversation to have because or not, I mean, to like give advice on how to structure your comment to avoid certain um, communication pitfalls, because everybody communicates differently.
Mhm.
And everybody, it's such an entrenched style thing. Some people, when they feel attacked, will get passive aggressive. Some people, when they get attacked, will amp it up and attack back with twice as much fury. Some people, when they feel like they're getting attacked, will become very apologetic and backpedal. Everybody has a slightly different style, just depending on how you were raised and how your personality, what you value, all of those things that kind of feed into it. Um, so to tell somebody to behave in a way that's different than who they are can really feel, it's hard advice to take because it just doesn't feel natural. And yet doing
So,
what feels natural may be absolutely the wrong thing to do.
right, and I think it's really interesting because I just took a course on negotiation, and it was a very interesting thing. And I think this is a place where you use some of those tools. Where there's two really roads that you go down with negotiation. One is competitive, and the other one is cooperation. And a lot of times you need both in a negotiation. So you kind of have to know when to be competitive and challenging a little bit, but also when you can turn it to cooperation, and also when to quit. Just when to stop,
Yeah.
which can sometimes happen and be a little crazy. You know, um, so there's some things like that. But I think it's a really good discussion to have: is how emotional can you be? What is really allowed? But that also brings me to something too down here that I want to talk about, because there's another truth here, and everybody needs to know this, and that's this: they're just those people out here. They're just, you know, they just are.
Yeah.
And there's a name that they're called. They're called trolls, and I see them all the time. I see them, in a lot of the groups and forums and stuff that I look through. And they're just people there that really just like to be difficult. So it's in forums, it's in groups, it's not only in with customers. So I've seen people just get sliced and diced in a forum, in my mind, very unfairly. You ask for an opinion, somebody gives you an opinion, and then you just tear them up, and so you get baited. And there are people out there that bait people. So social media can be a cesspool. So I think there's a lot of times, if you think you're dealing with somebody that really is just a jerk and a troll, that you have every right to just back out.
Sometimes they're shaking you down. I
Sure.
mean, they're looking for something free out of this, right? Like, I'm gonna tell the world about my bad experience and get you to give it to me for free. Or, I saw something the other day. I thought, wow, this is interesting. The person got on and said, this business is horrible. They don't take responsibility for themselves. I was following a truck from this business on the road, and a piece of siding flew off the back of the truck and hit my car and damaged it. And I called the company, and the business owner said it wasn't their fault and it wasn't their truck because they don't do siding work. And so there wouldn't be siding. Well, I mean, here we are in a situation where, a very upset customer had something hit their car, possibly,
Mhm.
and they feel that the business is responsible, and the business owner is saying, not us. And they're doing this in public. And I'm like, oh, this is not gonna, I mean, careful here. What's happening? And, but it became obvious that it almost sounded like the, the person who, with the grievance, was trying to get something from that business,
Yeah.
whether it was going to end up being an insurance claim or something like that. He was using social media and reviews as a way of targeting that business to get them to back off and give him a more favorable outcome. And so you do see some of that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Well, and that's been going on for a long time. I don't know if you remember when we first were in business, we worked with a little auto garage
Yep.
place here in Nashville. Worked with him for a couple of years before he sold the business. And one of the things that he experienced during the flood, I believe it was in was it 2011, when the flood happened, he had a whole bunch of cars in his in the bays. So he did what he felt was the prudent thing to do: bring all the cars in, put them on the jacks, and lift them up so they didn't get wet, which is what he did. I mean, he had like 17 cars all in these little in this bay is like a certain like a U, propped up. And I don't know if you remember, but the one lady who took a bus from downtown to get her car, and there wasn't anybody there, she couldn't get her car, and it was up on a jack. And she was hot, and she was ready to sue him and all kinds of stuff. Now that was back before social was. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't near what it is today. So you do the best thing you can, but sometimes there's not everybody's happy.
And you can't make everybody happy, and you don't always know what their agenda is. But my thing is, in that kind of a situation, ultimately what the business owner ended up saying, and I thought was the first thing this business owner should have said was, I don't know why you're talking about this on social media. I'm a business owner and I am responsible. That's why I carry insurance. So your insurance company needs to talk with my insurance company and they need to work this out. End of
End of
discussion.
story. Yeah. No, that's good. So let's talk about this a minute. Auto-populated ones from Google, fair ones. So, Hannah, the only auto-populated ones that I know are not from Google. Tell me a little bit more about what you're talking about there. That'll help me a little bit. Maybe I'm lost, but I don't know what you're talking about. Then I'm going to go to Terry, then Hannah, I'm going to come back to you. Call a customer on the phone after they leave a bad Yelp review. Actually, Terry, I'm not talking about that. We're talking mainly about social media, Facebook, those kind of deals. But Yelp could be considered social media. There is a review there. I don't know. Do you normally call after somebody leaves a bad review on Yelp? I can't imagine you ever getting a bad review, Terry. I didn't think that happened. But I mean, it could. I mean, if somebody leaves a bad review, I think contacting that customer or answering that customer, is what you need to do. The last time I looked, and I haven't been on Yelp in a long time, I will admit that. Yelp still had a way that you could talk back to the customer online. But if that's no longer the case, then if I got a bad review on Yelp, I would absolutely pick up the customer and say, hey, I'm the owner. I saw this review. Would like to talk to you about it. Tell me a little bit more about what happened. I want to make this right.
I would still leave a public comment though, because the rest of the world isn't going to know that you picked up the phone and called that customer and had a private conversation with them offline. And so for them, they're simply going to see the negative comment or review and think that you didn't say anything, didn't have anything else to add to the discussion, or you don't care about your customers. So I think it's always important to respond in that public forum, even if you call that person to get into more specific information or specific conversation with them about the particulars.
So I want to ask this, because she said you could privately message the customer. So is that not seen when you privately PM a customer? I would say it's not seen on Yelp. Is that correct?
Yeah, the private communication with that person, with that Yelp user, is not public as far as I understand. But you can leave a public comment to the public review. A response is what they call it.
So, Terry, that's a good point. If you were a customer and feel intimidated if the business called about a bad review, and I think responding publicly is great. But I will tell you, personally, it depends on how you approach it. If I'm a business owner and I get a bad review and I would like to know more about that, as long as I'm respectful and say, hey, I saw this and I just wanted to call you and apologize for any inconvenience this has been and see if I can get this resolved. And if they are not in the mood to do that, okay, that's fine. We hang up the phone. But if I can turn that customer into a positive situation and do it on the phone respectfully. Now, if I'm a business owner and I'm going to call and berate that customer, I totally agree with you. I would never do that. Ever, ever,
No.
ever, ever.
Talk about giving somebody a
Yeah,
weapon to turn around and use on you. Yeah, but
yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's, I think, sometimes important for a customer who has been unreasonable online to be contacted and just let them know, hey, I'm very willing to talk with you and see if we can negotiate something that is closer to what you want, or make right whatever situation we can. But you got to understand that when you go online and say some of the things that you said, how much that impacts our business. So I'm hoping that by calling you, we can have a conversation and get the agreement between us to solve this problem, so that maybe if we can do that, then you can go and moderate your comment online and let people know with a follow-up comment how we dealt with this. I don't think that's inappropriate in certain circumstances.
Yeah, but I think being respectful is really the key. Okay, so I'm going to put this up here. So this is Hannah. Had a customer leave a review. She tries to monitor and respond to them. And so when she went to respond, it automatically populated one with Mr. So and so and etc. They seem rather intuitive, but on the one I saw, but knock on wood, I haven't had a bad one where it would auto populate to give me a better idea of what they use in that response, whether it's fair. So I've never seen Google do an auto response.
Um, I have, in the case of a positive 5-star review. When you
Okay.
go in, sometimes there is like just an auto suggestion for a positive review. I've not seen one for a negative review, because those are almost always more specific with regard to the way that you want to respond. So I haven't ever seen an auto-populated suggestion for a comment on a negative review, but I know that I have seen a suggestion on the
Okay.
5-star.
So it was a suggestion. Yeah, I've seen them suggest it and you can hit a button and it'll post it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I was thinking it was an auto that had already been posted.
Yeah. No.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I haven't seen that. That's a little different. So yeah, well that's really good. I think the thing that I would remember here is two things. If somebody is just a jerk and a troll and leave some things on your social media, there are ways that you can respond. So if you see this and you take a quick picture of it or come back to it where you can see it, I know it's a little bit long, but I did want to put it on here. And I'll try to go and if y'all want to email me at taylor@sparkmarketer.com, I can take this and send these back to you. But this is for specifically Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They do have places that you can report abusive behavior. So if somebody is just being abusive online, you can report that. So just know that you can do that. I think that's really, really important that you guys have that. So yeah, that's really, really important to have that information. And then the bottom line is this. It doesn't matter if it's a review. It doesn't matter if it's social or on review. If it is online, in other words, if it's not an email or a phone call, those are things that are private to you and that customer. As soon as it goes online, you need to understand people are watching. So my mother used to tell me, like she'd tell my brother and I all the time, make sure you got clean underwear on when you leave the house in case there's an accident, because people will be there. If you go to the hospital, they're gonna take your clothes off. And we're like, gotta have clean underwear on. I think about that in relation to the internet. People are watching, so whatever I put on there, better be okay. because it's like my underwear might be showing, so I got to make sure I'm good. So I think if you realize that and know that people are watching, that you can respond accordingly and appropriately. May have been a little crass example, but it's the only one I could come up with.
Yeah, that's fair. I think every mother has told the child that. Terry says we got a bad Google review from a competitor who's clearly a competitor. He showed up in his bio. They gave us a 2-star Google review for being a Swede.
I'd give you a 5-star for that.
I've tried getting it removed through Google, and they won't remove it.
So Google is a little bit of a quandary right now. I'll just tell you, in the Google business profile over the last 3 months, they've got some issues. There's a lot of suspensions going on. They are cracking down like nobody's business on reviews. They're cracking down on businesses trying to scam the system, a whole lot of stuff. So there's a few things that are broken in that system. What I would do is I would submit it again, Terry. I would submit it over and over and over again. We have had some that we have submitted up to 10 times before I think they got tired of us submitting it and finally just took it down. It doesn't happen often, but you just have to stay at it. I mean, and unfortunately, that's just kind of the way Google is right now, and they are slow. I mean, anything that you send in, anything that you do with them, they are sometimes 20, 30 days out. So just kind of know that. But I would absolutely just keep submitting that. If it's that obvious that it's a competitor, then I would absolutely do that. The other thing you might want to do, there's what's the form? Gosh, I love when I think about this. There's a way that you can kind of kick it up a notch. Terry, email me and I'll put you in touch with Aaron. There's a form that he can send to you, and you might reconciliation. That's it. It's a reconciliation form that you can actually, if you go in and Google reconciliation form, Google, you should be able to pull that up. And it's a form you can fill out where you can show that they are a competitor and that you've never done work for them because they compete with you, and that may help you.
Cool.
I have to put this up there. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely 100%. God bless Aaron and his Google abilities. I love it, Anna. Yeah, if you've ever had a Google business profile issue and worked with us, then Aaron is the man, and everybody loves him. So we're out of time, and just want to let you guys know that Spark Live is also now a podcast. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and your favorite player. And next week, oh my goodness, Q&A with Carter. I'm sure I'm going to try. I'm going to be on vacation, but I'm going to try to come back for this next week. I'm not exactly sure what my kids have planned or my grandkids, but I'm going to try to be here. So
I took a peek at some of the questions for next week, and they're good. So I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good Q&A.
Yep, I think so. And thanks again for everybody that's given us a thumbs up and a heart. Really appreciate all of you. I love that all the ladies are here every week. Have you noticed that?
Well, yes, and I like it too.
I do. I love that. So it's a lot of fun. So guys, have a great week. We'll see you next week. And until then, I hope business is fantastic. Talk to you later.
Bye, everyone.